This episode of the Residential Tech Talks podcast is sponsored by Brilliance LED, where enchantment begins the moment the sun goes down. Step into a world of stunning lighting effects from the comfort of your window and enjoy added security with genuine Brilliance LED and Metalworks fixtures. Each piece is American-made in Carefree, Arizona, by a team of landscape lighting professionals boasting over 90 years of combined experience. Trust your evenings to Brilliance. Experience a higher light form. Visit www.brillianceled.com/fixtures to learn more.
Residential Tech Talk, fantastic lighting specialist to our residential tech.
Home automation, smart device, home or smart house.
All right, we are back on the Residential Tech Talks podcast and sitting down in sunny Arizona. You wouldn't know it because we're inside, but sunny Arizona with Mr. Tom Doherty. Appreciate you taking the time in the middle of the conference to sit down and chat with me and talk about what's going on.
Well, thanks for your interest.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's cool to be back in the space and back to covering HTSA and what you guys are doing because first of all, there's always something. You're always busy and need to be at these shows and see what you guys do. And I know you've been busy since the last time we had a chance to connect, since my coming to these shows. But, before we dive into that and what you've been doing, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about the event here, the spring conference, and how things are going. So talk about, what this week's been like.
Another successful conference, great input and a reaction by both our members and our vendor partners. It's a collaboration. This year we also invited Joaquin from his company, and so we have a rep here because they're all part of this ecosystem. Yeah. And just got done reviewing or seeing a panel discussion that had one of our members, a couple manufacturers, and Joaquin. And it was a really lively conversation, to kind of discover on how we can all, work better together, improve communications, and create prosperity for all.
Yeah, it's been kind of encouraging to see, right? To just the collaboration from across the industry and across the channel. We could dive into a whole history of it, but it's for another podcast. We're here to talk about the work that you've been doing, and it's been exciting to see. I think back to when you first started with the group, and the ideas and directions that were coming to the table, and here 8 years later, is that right? 8-ish, almost 8.
I started in 2017, right at CEDIA.
Yeah.
And then I really met you.
Yeah.
My first kind of coming out to the group, a month later was at our conference in Chicago in 2018. And that's when I shared with our group and then was reported, specifically why did Tom come to HTSA and, what is he there to do?
Yeah, so I know we talked yesterday as we sat down about kind of the path and the history, but from where we started to where we are, is there anything you've learned? One thing you could put your finger on that you've learned about the work you've been doing?
Well, things don't happen as fast as what I think they should. At the same time, there's just been tremendous. There's progress. We're still very early in this opportunity, this category of lighting fixtures, the idea of integrators being able to have expertise in the narrative, to be taken seriously by builders and their clients as what you're going to do the lighting, for them to have been able to step up, more and more. And, the industry's got a long way to go, but there's an ever-growing large subset that can competently design, specify, commission, lighting fixtures. It's mostly satisfying to see the number of homes that have now getting elevated lighting experiences that otherwise just would not have happened had we not kind of gone down this path evangelizing that integrators should get into this and why.
Yeah. And I think, you could point to a bunch of different things and instances of just how important lighting's become. I know another new thing since, I came aboard, since I've come back on and since you've come aboard, is Lightapalooza and what that's become. I think that's a testament to the importance and buy-in across the channel, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've lived this movie before.
Yeah.
I come from a hi-fi stereo store, background, and, through way too long of a story, was involved in these early days of what became custom installation. And I'd maybe call that 4 BC. I started in 1985, so 4 BC would be 4 years before CEDIA, and that being founded in 89. And I was there when that was happening, and it was part of that leadership. And the same sort of things where, there's this community of people that are now, starting to get in this lighting thing. And a lot of the learning and growth is through sharing information, through passion and enthusiasm about the opportunity. Not identical, but similar challenges where back then you had the traditional hi-fi specialty stores and those manufacturers that weren't very keen on an integrator or a custom installer to have access to the products and so on and so forth. And we formed CEDIA primarily to, have a place in a community to share information, and then to also kind of aggregate and validate that this was a channel and an opportunity. And that's why we formed it. It was based around education. It was based around bringing the manufacturers and the integrators together to innovate and create things more for the opportunity that custom install provided. We created a conference around that. And I was seeing the same thing and the same need, early on. But COVID kind of stalled, what I had intended to have happen in 2019 and 2020. 2022, we just pulled the trigger, and I knew that there was a need and an opportunity for manufacturers to get together in one space to meet the at that time, a very small community of integrators that believed in that bring in expert, lighting, education, that would be a draw. And a couple hundred people showed up, and we've had, now we just completed our 4th conference. So 36 months later, it's kind of taken on a lot of the same things. So I've lived the movie before. I kind of had an idea of what needed to happen. And I wasn't visionary then. I was visionary back then, but I just was I was rinse and repeat this time.
This was the sequel. And sequels have their own sort of reputation, but I think this one's doing pretty well, if I do say so. But, to the integrators that are, finding success in this space, what do you think? Is there anything you can put your finger on as to why they are? Obviously, belief in what they're doing is one thing, but is there anything that they are doing that you could say this is, consistently a reason why these integrators are succeeding?
Well, they're succeeding or failing.
Well, which one do you want to dive into?
Well, first of all, I think whether maybe they're not failing, but maybe they're not. Maybe what I know is it's hard.
Yeah.
Okay, it's hard. We've consistently, as an industry, have added categories. My career tracks ARC. The ARC is 8 tracks to apps. And so in the beginning, it was just, hi-fi systems. And really the first custom installation was just distributed audio, and then home theater, then surround, and on and on and on, as you know. And, lighting control was something that the third CEDIA Lutron exhibited in 92. But I would say not until mid-2000s did the bulk of integrators really embrace lighting control. I think 2008, 2010, not everybody was doing it. There was a lot of being done, but, that was still one of the first things that got removed from the quote or the proposal. The client said, well, I can flip switches. So lighting control was a challenge in of itself. That was like figuring out how to collaborate or cooperate or be in the same room with the electrician.
Yeah.
And then shades. That was like, where is that coming from? And that was a whole new thing to learn. And there was some mistakes that you could make that were costly, like mismeasuring a window.
Yeah.
Hopefully you measured it too big, because sometimes you could cut down that roller shade. Or if you didn't, you just ordered a replacement roller and the motor was still good. Maybe you had the wire on the wrong side. Maybe you didn't understand that you needed to measure the window casing at 3 points because nothing's square or plumb.
Right. Yep.
So there were things that people learned when they first started doing shades, and they've got that. Lighting is that many more X variables, and lots of things can go wrong. There's just so many things that it just either you need to know it all, or you need to have the stomach to stomach some mistakes and are willing to power through it. And so that's challenging. There's just challenges from all kinds of fronts. You know,
Yeah.
Some people don't think you should be doing that, like the builder or the architect or the client. It's really easy to get over your skis and take on things that you probably shouldn't be taking on. So those are things, and that's where the education, that's where the community, that's where the information sharing. The one thing one thing I'll now also add that's different, that's actually beneficial in a way. When we first started doing custom installation, that was completely grassroots, seat of the pants. We were inventing it and making it up as we were going.
Yeah.
And there weren't really products made, and things truly were custom. You were modifying equipment and soldering on contacts to make remotes work and things like that. And back then, the independent rep didn't know anything. It's not like the rep could help you. Like, well, this is what you should do about custom installation, because we were inventing it. We were doing it. The rep forces back then were wired and built to serve the specialty audio retailer and work with those buyers, and that was a different thing.
Yeah.
And I would never have asked the rep how to be successful in custom installation when we were starting out, because we knew more than they did.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, these reps are kind of ahead of a lot of them. A lot of these reps have gotten the education. They built out. Some of these reps have, real training centers and experience centers in their own offices. They're taking lighting training. They're taking it seriously. And this is a help. These reps are really helping an integrator that's curious about getting into the channel. So that's kind of an extra boost.
Right. It kind of, I called to the general session today, and the idea of wonder that John, that this show is about, but that John was talking about on stage, and he mentioned the being wondrous or curious about continuing education and how important that is. That just goes to show there's another avenue that a dealer could take and an integrator could take to learn about this space, and we all have to be staying ahead of that curve of education and being smart and well educated, to not find another word there, but so that you could talk to your clients, right, and be there for them as a resource. So that extra avenue to learn and just become smarter in this category, to your point, is just it's an incredible resource to the dealers that are out there.
Yeah, very much so. And then clearly there are people that are having success, but the ones that are having success are the ones that had took this on years ago.
Yeah.
There are very few people that are having success that started like last week or even last year. I came on 8 years ago. When I came on, I had been made aware of Ketra, through a colleague of mine. Jan Vitrosky said, "Hey, have you heard of Ketra? Check it out." And I was like, holy moly. And they were an independent company down there in Austin. And they were the first partner that we signed up when I came on board. They had been at CEDIA, and then I had conversations with them and talked to them about my role with HTSA and what my vision was. So they came on board, and they were at that Chicago meeting. And, and so a number of our members were intrigued. We took like 40 people down there in December, a few months later, for an immersive training. And then another 40 came around February. And those early people that came on that then stuck in, really started to attack it, are the most successful people, but they've been at it 8 years. There's, before I joined HTSA, I had kind of, joined forces with the Carmel, Indiana company, Triphase. They're well known by your listeners. Robert Hacker, myself and my daughter Ellie, come with me. And, we built a lighting lab for them and brought lighting design and lighting services and the lighting lines that I knew to his business. Yeah. And that was 2015. And they've been at it so long that it was really challenging those first couple of years for them to figure out the inventory and the how to order and the parts. And then, the thing about lighting is that, with audio or the AV that we do, you specify a speaker in the ceiling. And if there's, some sort of construction conflict with the duct or something else, it's like, well, I can put it over here.
Yeah, right.
And with lighting, it's like, we're going to have to go back to the drawing board or we need to return that piece and on and on. So I don't want to get in the weeds here, but it's a journey. It takes time. It takes commitment. The one thing I'll also emphasize is probably if you take two integrators who have been at it, a reasonable amount of time, one might be having, success and the other one should be having equal success, but they're struggling. And what's the difference? Because both of them have gotten education and training. Both of them have built out their showroom so they can demonstrate it. Both of them have been able to sell systems. But then the thing about it is maybe the owner came in and is all excited about it and they've introduced it to a couple people in their company. And now that the job has been sold and it needs to be ordered to implement it, they throw it over the wall and the project manager, it lands on their lap and they don't know anything about this stuff.
Right.
They've never project managed a lighting job. They don't know the whole sequence. They don't know how to react to the challenges that are thrown at them. And they're quite frankly overwhelmed. So there's a lot of people that have been at this for a little bit of time. And so there's a whole different set of skill sets on the project management side that don't necessarily translate at all from what they know.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was the follow-up that was swirling in my head is, about that commitment to this specific category, because it's not something, everything you're describing in that specific example is proof that you can't just, I don't want to say slap a Band-Aid because that's the wrong type of analogy, but you can't just dip a toe in. Like you have to, cold plunge yourself into this channel and really dive in, and any other, fully immersive, like type, cliches you want to throw out there. But like you have to be serious about it, because you can't expect, to dip your toe in and be successful. You have to make that commitment and educate yourself, your team, bring on, if you need to go out for outside help and bring outside help in, to really grasp the channel. Like that's what you have to do, and the type of investment and commitment you have to make to be successful at it. So it's good to hear that, I think, for sure, for the integrators that are out there listening, that whether they're in it right now or possibly considering, getting into lighting.
Yeah, very much so.
So added benefits to this. I know you guys have done some, looking at internally the dealers that are involved in lighting that are having success. What benefits are they seeing, whether it's in that category or just across their business in general?
Well, so the primary pitch that I was making, I'm there at 2018, and HTSA has very progressive, successful integrators, and then when I was saying this is the next thing we should be getting into, there was a lot of, I wouldn't say puzzlement, but it's like,
why?
Well, really? And so the case that I made was that, that this is an area that, can get you in front of projects sooner than you're getting in now. If I can share something very quickly. When I first was, getting married, and my father-in-law would say, now, what is it that you do? And it was like really, kind of difficult to kind of explain. But then, I would have a builder and he would say, Oh, you can put, speakers in the multiple rooms? Oh, that sounds great. I've got a client for that. Oh, that's awesome. Well, when do you need me to, meet with them or get with it? No. We're sheetrocking in a couple days, and I need you to get there and start pulling wires. So this is like 85 to 86. So later on in the early 90s, when home theater is really starting to happen, THX, builders like, hey, I've got a client and oh, great. You need me to pre-wire? No. They're interested in a home theater and we haven't dug the hole yet. We need to know the dimensions and what the space is. What do we need to do to construct this?
Yeah.
A little later, 10, 15 years later, hey, don't you have some projects going on that we need to get in front of people? Yeah. They're interested in they're interested in automation, all that. They're going to get to that. But they want to go look at kitchen appliances and cabinets because people just become numb to the stuff that we've been doing. They've been exposed to it for a couple decades. It wasn't new for them anymore. They knew they were going to get it, but it wasn't like the most interesting thing that they wanted to sit down and have a meeting about.
Getting kicked further and further.
So then as I started to get into this lighting thing, around 2004, 2005, and really digging into it hard by 8, and starting to offer those services in Carmel, Indiana, Indianapolis, I first had a lot of resistance from the builder. We're not buying lights from you. We're going to send them to the lighting showroom. But I convinced a couple clients. I'd built a lighting demonstration space and we'd put it in. And after we finished projects, the builder's like, oh, wow, this is good. And then I started getting those calls again. Hey, we're meeting with this client. The interior designer is going to be there. The architect's going to be there. We need you there to help kind of talk through the lighting because they're interested in that. And so my pitch was this gets you into projects earlier. Mm-hmm. So the ones that has been proven out 100%. And so what we did is, I wanted to look at a historical, purchasing data of our membership. So we did this in preparation of last fall's conference. And so what I did is I looked at all of our members and then I looked at their aggregate lighting fixture purchases, from all of our vendor partners. And I then was able to kind of come up with, groupings. So the most successful or the highest volume of fixture purchases down to, 0.
Yep.
And, consistently it was based on how long they've been at it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to look at what their growth was across all the other categories. So what's their aggregate growth of all their purchases of speakers and control systems and televisions and all that? And, first of all, just 6% of our members' purchases were from lighting. 94% was from all the other categories because there had been some concern, from some manufacturers thinking that, we as a group were putting too much interest or emphasis on lighting. We were ignoring their categories. It's like, fair enough, but actually the lighting purchases is only 6% of the total purchases across the board. But what we did was I looked at that. I came up with essentially 5 groupings. I reference my slides here. Yeah, I had 5 groupings. And I had 7 members that were purchasing several $100,000 a year, worth of lighting fixtures. Yeah. And then down from that, still 6 figures, but lower 6 figures. And then, somewhere, 50,000 to not much, but something. They were starting to ones that were 0. Yeah. And at overall group purchases, all 100 of our members last year during the fall, we were up 6% over year from the previous. But when I looked at the top category, our members that were the most successful in lighting, they were up almost 34%.
And that's across the board.
Across the board.
Yeah.
They were up 34% in purchases. And then the next tier down, we're up 24%. And then down from that, that one that it was doing, reasonable, but not they weren't as far along, and ones that were just starting were averaging around 5%.
Yeah.
And then the 20 members that weren't doing any of it were off 6.5%.
Wow.
They were down. And so my theory is that the ones that, had taken this on had indeed got in front of projects sooner, because what happens is this is the process. If you're offering lighting services, you're brought in early, and that's the only conversation you're having.
Right.
You're just like, okay, let me educate you on lighting. Oh, you like this. Oh, the next step is for us to do a design and come up with a budget. And that's multiple meetings with the designer, the client, the architect. And over that period of time, you're gaining trust.
Yeah.
And they're not looking or thinking about anything else, and you're not talking to them about all the other technology. So then when it comes time to come around to talk about the other technology, they're like, well, what should we do here?
Go right back to you.
And we're not going to go talk to somebody else. I trust you. Mm-hmm. So that's the reason to do it.
Yeah.
But it's hard.
Yeah. Long story short, it's you've learned that, well, I say those members have learned from you that, all that work and effort you've been putting in, that is the payoff. Because that's for years, that's what we've been hearing is, how do I get involved in the conversation sooner? You found and have presented the answer, and it's awesome to see that they're, realizing now the payoff of that, for those members that have been doing it for a while. And to your other point too, I didn't even think about that. The fact that, vendors as well, because they're going to, obviously, if the members' purchase behavior, sees improvement throughout the rest of their business, the fact that they're getting involved earlier with lighting, all those other vendors benefit too. They
benefit because the client trusts them, and you're able to introduce the highest performance options. You can say, here's the highest performance television. They're not looking at you as a salesperson when you're giving one big fat proposal.
Right.
You've earned the trust on this design. You're part of the team. You're invited to meetings that maybe you used to not always be invited to. And then that gives you freedom to expand their awareness of what's possible. And then they can decide. You don't need to be in sales mode. At that point, it's like, well, let me show you the latest technology on micro video wall.
Yeah.
Let me show you this. Let me show you this. Is this interesting to you? Here's the difference in performance of the in-wall speaker range. It's not just, whatever the commodity or entry level number or what your incremental step up is. You can now expose them to the full range. And that just increases, the quality and performance that they end up getting, and it results in, larger dollars for everybody and happier clients.
Impressive. And, there's the business side of it too, but also the other thing that comes to mind, and it was another message that was shared here, is just being able to build that rapport and that, that overall trust with your client, and, the impacts that can have on your business. And when you're already to your point about being in there earlier and talking about the lighting side of things, you've built that trust with them, so they can come right back to you and see you as that technology advisor to them. So it's awesome to see. And I know we talked about it previously, but it's a message that has taken about 7-8 years to get out there and get some people to realize what the true payoff is. But it's one that we're seeing it, right. The proof is in the data, just the benefits that it can have. So I look forward to continuing to pump this message for you. Anything the next step for this, because I want to borrow from that idea of wonder and continuing to learn, right? So what is the next thing for this category that you'd be telling members about?
I think the next area that's early in the curve, that's only got growth is these intelligent power solutions. These smart panels, the batteries, the solutions that a number of our vendor partners and the rest of the industry is starting to look at. The client is ever more open and aware, and it's not like a foreign conversation about power. Mm-hmm. And it's an area that's next in importance to have competency in, and to be able to deliver a narrative. And that's why, a lot of people, we added power as a category to Lightapalooza. I mean, Lightapalooza has been really about, at first it was lighting fixture sales and sourcing, lighting design, lighting control. But it was also natural light control. That's why we had shade companies there for natural light control. And power just felt, people were kind of worried, well, what are you gonna add next? And it's not really about that. I just felt that those things are all complementary and they represent what's next in our channel. The other shows and the other events, do a fine job on the legacy technologies or legacy categories, not legacy technologies, legacy categories. And so that's the effort that we're putting into it. We had a number of, integrators are interested in do I add an electrical division? Am I getting in the contracting business? What do I do there? So those are the, kind of leveraging my experience and being in their shoes and having the benefit of not the hard work that they have to face and do every time. I can just sit and kind of,
be that
think, just kind of think about what's next.
No, that's awesome. And here's hoping it's not another 8 years for them to get that category down. Right? No, that's awesome, Tom. It's always a pleasure to be able to pick your brain and catch up with you. And these members are lucky. This channel's lucky to have you. So appreciate you taking the time, inviting me back in. And sitting down with us here. So we appreciate it.
Welcome back, Rob.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this episode of the Residential Tech Talks podcast, please subscribe to us on the platform you're listening on. Also be sure to follow Residential Tech Today on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Residential Tech Talks, fantastic lighting specialist to our residential tech.
Home automation, smart device, home or smart house.
This episode of the Residential Tech Talks podcast was sponsored by Brilliance LED, where enchantment begins the moment the sun goes down. Step into a world of stunning lighting effects from the comfort of your window and enjoy added security with genuine Brilliance LED and Metalworks fixtures. Each piece is American-made in Carefree, Arizona, by a team of landscape lighting professionals boasting over 90 years of combined experience. Trust your evenings to Brilliance. Experience a higher light form. Visit www.brillianceled.com/fixtures to learn more.